Hey everyone, it's Megan Rigby, and this is my first YouTube video. I thought it would be fun to do it on Dexascans. I got a lot of questions this week about it, and so I thought I would share with you my results, my thoughts, and then, what I recommend other people doing it. Dexascan is just an actual scan. So it does involve a little bit of radiation, not much, but it's a scanner that will look at your bones. It looks at your fat and it looks at your muscle. So I went in just to get baseline numbers. I've been working out for 6 years and I've never had one done. I've never done a bod pod. I'm not obsessed with what my body fat is. So I did think it would be interesting just to go in and kind of see where I was at and then share my thoughts with you guys. It took about 6 minutes for the whole test. Super easy. All I had to do was fast for 6 hours and then not work out before the test, just so I didn't skew any other results. And I went in, laid down. 6 minutes later, I had a fancy little printout and it showed what my muscle was in the red, what my fat was in the yellow, and then as you can see, my bones. Many people use this to tell them their body fat, tell them bone density so you can predict osteoporosis, and then also look at your lean muscle mass. The 3 reasons why I would recommend doing this would be 1, for baseline numbers, 2, to figure out your accurate total daily expenditure of calories and needed protein, and then 3 would be just to get an overall health baseline as well. And the number 1 is your baseline numbers. I wish I could have every client do this because realistically, clients probably about 8-12 weeks complain that they may not be seeing the results or they're not building muscle fast enough. So I think if most clients would go in and get this done right at the beginning of their fitness journey, they could have it done 3 to 6 months later and actually see that they've made results. As females especially, we're super hard on ourselves. So when we're not seeing the number on the scale move, because we all mentally think that that's our key goal, we think we're not progressing. But actually, what we don't realize is when we're building muscle and we're losing fat, the scale may plateau a little bit, but it's for good reasons. We're making good changes in the body that you can't always see externally right away. So I think getting these numbers is great because you want to see how low or how high your body fat is when you're starting, and then where your actual muscle ratio is. So then when you go back in, you can see, hey, I gained 3 pounds of muscle and lost 2% body fat. Those are huge changes. And I think it would actually help people see that they're moving in the right direction because the scale and measurements don't always help with that. So if you're in the middle of your journey, beginning of your journey, wherever, I think it definitely is beneficial to have this done so you can see where you're at. So number 2 reason to do this is to actually look and see how much lean muscle you have on your body. Because I think it's important to know that so you know what your protein goals are. There is such a huge misconception with protein. I see so many women coming to me that are 120 pounds and they're eating 200 grams of protein. Now there's no reason for that at all. Even if this female was eating 1.5 grams of protein per lean pound of muscle, it's not gonna equate to 200, I can guarantee you. When you eat protein, it is not per pound of body weight that you should be eating. You should be eating your protein per pound of lean muscle mass. So for me, I'm 94 pounds of lean muscle. If I was going to try and maintain my body where it's at, I would do 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per lean muscle, not per pound of body weight. So I really essentially only need like 90 to 95 grams of protein to just kind of maintain and stay where I'm at. I used to eat 150 grams during a lot of my building phases, and that worked if I wanted 1.5 grams per pound of lean muscle. But at this point, I'm just not there anymore, so this would work for me. But I think it's super important, especially for women who think that protein is the end-all be-all, and if you eat too much of it, it won't affect you. Need to understand that it will. If you're eating too much protein for your body, then whatever you don't use is gonna get turned into glucose, and it can actually be stored as fat. So it's a common misconception that protein is protein and it doesn't do anything if we eat it in excess, but it does. So essentially, you're eating excess protein to turn into carbohydrates. Me, I would rather eat my carbohydrates than eat way too much protein. That's just me. Some people are different. But you also have to realize too that your kidneys can only process so much protein. So you don't want to be eating more than you actually have to. And that's a huge part of macros. And then also, it's a great way to see what your total daily calories should be. So you know that you can go on and get a basal metabolic rate to see where your resting calories are, and then you can get a TDEE to actually see what your total daily expenditure calories should be. And the third and final reason for this ramble is to actually get a health indicator of where you are. Besides looking at just the muscle and the bone, this looks at your fat, which is a reason why a lot of people do it. But the important fat that it looks at is your visceral fat. It is the fat that covers your organs, and essentially you don't want much there, because the higher that is, the more risk you have for heart issues and diabetes, and none of us want that. So I was really excited to see that I had a low visceral fat content, because that just shows that internally I'm healthy. So what I'm doing on a daily basis is keeping me internally healthy, and that's more important than my external looks, because I want healthy hormones, I want healthy organs. That's what's gonna be sustainable long term. Also, body fat. Everyone wants this for body fat, and I would say it's probably one of the more accurate ways of doing it, because it leaves very little room for human error. Calipers and the handheld that you usually get, that actually is not very accurate, because if it's not done by the same person at the same time of day, done the same way, it's not actually going to reflect great results. It's kind of a good gauge, but this Dexascan is way better for body fat. And it's cool because it breaks it down on like where most of your fat is. You know, are your arms leaner than your legs, or is your stomach holding more of your fat? So you can really pinpoint where those areas are and where you hold more of your fat. My overall recommendation is do the Dexascan. I think it's great, especially if you feel like you haven't made any progress. Going and having this done and then keep pushing yourself and having it done again actually is going to be, you know, super motivational if you see those changes on an actual piece of paper, because mentally that's what we all need. We need to see the changes, and if we're not seeing it in the mirror, if we're not seeing it on the scale, then sometimes seeing it on a piece of paper is undeniable that you know that you're making the right changes. So thank you for following along for my first YouTube video. It was kind of long, kind of all over the place, but it's super fun, and I hope I can do more of these. But